Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Severe tropical storm Tino continues to move west-southwestward and is now nearing typhoon category.
The Philippines and Canada have signed a Status of Visiting Forces agreement to strengthen defense and security partnership.
The Department of Information and Communications Technology warns about a possible cyber attack on November 5.
The Department of Agriculture said that the rice import suspension will be extended until December 31, 2025.
First in the news, severe tropical storm Tino is now nearing typhoon category. Let's get more updates from Pag-asa weather specialist John Manalo.
Hey, John.
John, audio. Nakamute ka. Wala audio, John. Wala
we can't
audio.
hear you.
We can't hear you. Sayang report mo.
Okay, kasi there are several areas that are affected, and there are several areas also that the classes are suspended as well due to this
mga ibang provinces.
And the last time we talked to Pag-asa, sinabi nila this year we'll be expecting 2 to 3 more typhoons, diba, to end the year.
And
but
mostly
officially, Amihan is already here.
Correct, and mostly in the southern regions of the Philippines.
Okay.
All right, let's get John Manalo back for our update. John? Wala pa rin si John.
Oo, John. Let's try your audio again.
John, may pag-asa ba, John?
Oo.
Wala pang audio, sayang report
we'll get back to him later on. But for the meantime, several local government units across the country have suspended classes today, November 3, in preparation for Tropical Storm Tino. In Aklan, the suspension covers Balete, Ibahay, Kalibo, Malay, and New Washington. In Antique, affected areas include Caluya, Libertad, Pandan, Patnongon, San Jose de Buenavista, Sibalom, and Tibiao. Capiz residents in Dumarao, Ibasan, Hamindan, Maayon, Panitan, Pontevedra, and Rojas City are also affected. In Iloilo, suspensions apply to Balasan, Batad, Carles, Concepcion, Estancia, Leon, Oton, Pavia, Pototan, San Dionisio, Sara, and Iloilo City. Some areas in Negros Occidental are likewise affected. Other provinces and cities with class suspensions include Bohol, Cebu, Leyte, Northern Samar, Southern Leyte, and Butuan City. All right, we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News.
Storm Tino is now nearing typhoon category. Let's get more updates from Pag-asa weather specialist John Manalo. John, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Ma'am Angelo and Ma'am Angela and Sir Angelo.
Yun, nagkaroon ng pag-asa ng audio. Okay, John, ito si Tino, no? Where was it last spotted?
In-update po natin yung kanyang location. Nasa 360 kilometers po ito east ng Giwan, Eastern Samar.
Okay, so can you tell us ano yung magiging epekto nito sa ating bansa?
Malaking lugar po ang makakaranas ng malalakas na pagbugso ng hangin at ganoon din naman in terms of rainfall or pag-ulan. And if I may po, banggitin natin yung mga nakataas sa signal number 3 hanggang 1.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
Signal number 3 po ngayon dito sa southeastern portion ng Eastern Samar. Ganon din naman dito sa buong Dinagat Islands, Siargao at Bukas Grande Islands. Signal number 2 naman dito sa central and southern portion ng Eastern Samar, central and southern portion ng Samar, probinsya ng Leyte, Biliran, Southern Leyte, Bohol, northern and central portion ng Cebu, kasama dito yung Bantayan Islands at Camotes Islands at occidental Negros Occidental. Ganon din naman signal number 2 dito sa natitirang bahagi ng Surigao del Norte, northern portion ng Surigao del Sur, northeastern portion ng Agusan del Norte at signal number 1 naman dito sa Sorsogon, Masbate kasama ang Ticao at Burias Island, Albay, southern portion ng Quezon, southern portion ng Marinduque, Romblon, central and southern portion ng Oriental Mindoro, central and southern portion ng Occidental Mindoro, Cuyo Islands, Calamian Islands. Dito naman sa Visayas, signal number 1 din sa Northern Samar, natitirang bahagi ng Eastern Samar, natitirang bahagi ng Samar, natitirang bahagi ng Cebu, Siquijor, Negros Oriental, natitirang bahagi ng Negros Oriental, Guimaras, Iloilo, Capiz, Aklan, Antique kasama ang Caluya Islands. Signal number 1 din dito sa natitirang bahagi ng Surigao del Sur, Northern and Central portion ng Agusan del Sur, natitirang bahagi ng Agusan del Norte, Camiguin, Misamis Oriental, at northern portion ng Bukidnon.
John, if I'm seeing it correctly, parang medyo may pagbagal yung kilos nito ni Severe Tropical Storm Tino, no? So hanggang kailan ba siya dito sa ating Philippine Area of Responsibility?
Mananatili po ito hanggang Friday. So Friday nakikita na natin na nasa boundary na ito ng Philippine Area of Responsibility, and by that day ay nakikita natin base sa ating analysis na dun din yung araw na lalabas ito ng PAR. At tama po yung observation natin, Angela, no? Bumagal po talaga yung pagkilos nitong si Tino from 30 kilometers per hour, ngayon ay 25 kilometers per hour na lamang po ito.
Oo. So anong dahilan, anong cause ng pagbagal niya? Is it the amihan?
Marami pong factors kaya bumabagal yung bagyo, at ganoon din naman po yung factors na nakakaapekto rin sa intensity niya. At dahil nasa katubigan pa ito, bago siya mag-approach sa lupa, yung energy na posible pa niyang makuha at mag-intensify pa yung 2 typhoon category ay nananatiling malaki yung posibilidad. At habang naman binabaybay niya yung mga kalupaan natin, mababawasan na yung source ng energy niya, na kung saan yung katubigan po kasi nagsusupply ng energy para mas lumakas pa ito, lalo na kung mainit yung karagatan o yung temperatura ng ating karagatan. At habang binabaybay niya, sa ating analysis ay mananatili siya na nasa typhoon category hanggang by Wednesday morning ay nandito na siya sa may northern Palawan, and eventually ay lumabas na sa ating kalupaan. At
John,
again, by Friday pa po ito lalabas ng Philippine Area of Responsibility.
Diyan, para klaro lang sa viewers natin, ibig sabihin na bumagal, hindi humina, di ba? Actually, mas gugustuhin natin bumilis siya, di ba? Para umalis ka agad.
Ayan, Sir Angelo, mahalaga po yan kasi minsan nalilito din po yung iba nating kababayan. Magkaiba po yung pagbugso ng hangin. Yung pagbugso po o yung lakas ng hangin, ayun po yung hangin na umiikot sa paligid ng bagyo. Meron po yung mata, at yung lakas ng hangin sa paligid nito, sa eyeball at sa paligid nito, yun po yung pagbugso at lakas ng hangin. Pero yung pagkilos po niya, magkaiba po ito. Yung pagkilos naman niya, yun yung galaw mismo nung buong system na yan. Kasama yung mata, at yun po yung binabanggit natin na bumagal. Pero yung paghina niya ay hindi po natin nakikita pa sa kasalukuyan. Actually, mas lumakas pa po ito. At nakikita natin na mas mag-intensify pa ito into typhoon category.
Although nakikita ko sa track, no, parang sa southern area pa rin ng Philippines ang tatamaan. Pero ano epekto nito sa northern central Luzon?
Northern and Central Luzon, yung eastern part po ng, bali, unahin po natin yung Northern Luzon, ang makaka-apekto po sa atin dito ay mainly yung shear line. Yun naman po yung associated dun sa hangin galing sa Pacific Ocean, at ganoon din naman dahil northeast monsoon na, yung salubungan ng hangin na yun po yung shear line, at yun naman yung magko-contribute mainly sa mga pagulan natin sa eastern part, northeastern part ng Luzon. Pero sa southern part ng Luzon, yun naman maaabot pa rin po yung ilang bahagi ng Bicol region, ganun din ng Mimaropa at Calabarzon.
Meron ba tayong binabantayan na iba pang weather system aside from Tino?
Mahalaga din po yan, Ma'am Angela, no? Kasi dito sa ating TC threat potential, nakikita natin na may medium chance na may kasunod itong si Tino. Kaya heads up po sa ating mga kababayan. Pero sa kasalukuyan naman, nakikita natin na pa-north naman yung magiging track nitong kasunod.
Alright, we'll continue to get in touch with you.
Thank you very much, Pag-asa Weather Specialist John Manalo, for that update. The Department of Information and Communications Technology is warning the public of a possible cyber attack on November 5. In an advisory, the DICT said a distributed denial of service attack could disrupt access to websites and online platforms by overwhelming servers with heavy traffic. The agency stressed the incident is not expected to compromise personal data or financial accounts, but users may experience slow or inaccessible services. The DICT is coordinating with security agencies and international partners to monitor threats and bolster the country's cyber defenses.
Let's discuss that further with DICT Undersecretary Julius Gorospe. Good morning and welcome to our program. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning po.
Siguro po para mas maintindihan din po
Layman's
ng
terms,
ano
what's
po ba
going to
yung
happen?
DDoS na attack na yan?
DDoS stands for ano po yan? Distributed Denial of Service Attack. So, ibig sabihin, merong yung attacks manggagaling sa iba-ibang lugar at susubukan nilang i-inundate yung isang server or service ng maraming request. So, as a result, medyo babagal or kung hindi naman medyo hihinto yung server na yon sa pag-serve ng mga information.
So para magkakaroon ng traffic, kumbaga.
Yes.
What servers are we talking about? I mean, what the service providers?
Hindi po natin alam yon kung alin ang maapektuhan. So depende po yan sa magiging aksyon ng mga nagbabalak na gumawa nito sa November 5.
Pero sir, what specific intelligence or indicators po prompted, of course, the DICT to issue this early warning? Paano po ba natin na-detect yun?
Okay. So ito pong November 5, this is actually a popular date, no? Ang tawag dito is the Guy Fawkes Day. It started in UK. It was prompted by, a politician. And well, a long time ago, centuries ago. Tapos naging annual celebration na po yun, as parang a day of protest. Now, dito po sa atin sa Pilipinas, medyo may mga grupo na nakikilahok or nakikisabay sa pagdiriwang na to ng Guy Fawkes Day. Makikita po natin na nagre-recruit or naglalagay ng mga posts sa social media inviting other hackers to participate in the event. So tayo naman po, wala namang sa department, hindi naman po natin of course pinipigilan na magpahayag sila ng mga protesta nila especially sa mga nangyayari ngayon, pero kasi karapatan po naman nila yon. And then ang pinapaalala po natin is huwag silang gagawa ng mga bagay na lalabag sa batas. Tandaan po natin yung mga services na to na pwede nilang atakihin. May mga Pilipino na umaasa sa mga services na to, for example sa healthcare, sa banking, na baka maapektuhan po yung mga kababayan natin. So pinapalalahanan po lang natin yung mga tao na medyo hinay-hinay lang at isipin po nila na may mga taong umaasa sa mga services na to.
So para malinaw, Yusek, these are several individuals who may not know each other, who are going to participate in this event, not necessarily one singular threat actor.
Yes, tama po yan. So based po dun sa mga intelligence reports na natatanggap natin, yung mga individuals na to are based here in the Philippines, and yun nga naghihikayat sila na sumali sa kanilang protests sa November 5.
But there should have been a starting point. Are we looking at a starting point na galing sa isang organization na sila nagpakalat ng chain going down the line at naghikayat sa mga iba?
Hindi po natin masabi yan kasi maraming mga groups, no? So they're not necessarily organized. So parang may mga grupo na alam niyo naman sa hacking community, may mga kanya-kanyang grupo yan or barka-barkada. And sila yung nag-encourage na salihan sila, sumali sa kanila yung mga ibang hackers.
Okay. Of course, ang major concern dito ng mga kababayan natin, sir, is kung maapektuhan ba of course yung kanilang mga data, yung mga financial records nila.
Yes, based po dun sa mga nakalap naming information, ang binabalak po nilang gawin is a DDoS attack. So, ibig sabihin, i-inundate nila ng traffic yung mga servers. Wala pa naman pong indication na nagbabalak sila na i-penetrate yung mga systems to go beyond the DDoS attack. So, pero ganun pa man po, of course, kahit naman po walang ganitong pinaplanong attack, pinapaigting po ng department at saka ng mga ibang ahensya ng gobyerno yung pagbabantay at saka pagsisecure ng mga information at saka database ng mga data subjects na nasa database nila.
So how do I know pag nangyayari na nga ito as an individual who is not Well, he's not
Tech-savvy.
knowledgeable in situations like this, di ba? Paano ko alam na babagal ba ang paggamit ng internet or talagang hindi na magagamit ang internet for some individuals?
Okay. Ito pong DDoS attack na to, nangyayari po to madalas, no? Hindi naman po to November 5 lang nangyari. In fact, last month, may mga ganitong pangyayari rin. Ang karaniwang napapansin po ng mga users, bumabagal yung mga servers. Depende na sa dami nung request or sa flood ng traffic na nare-receive ng server. Yung iba tumitigil talaga. And then normally naman po pag nakikita to ng mga agencies, may ginagawa silang paraan and in a matter of minutes bumabalik naman po yung services. Pero pag tinuloy-tuloy pa ulit nung mga grupo yung pag-attack nila, of course babagal ulit yun, and the cycle will continue.
Alam naman natin pag Yusek, no, pag bumabagal ang speed ng internet, especially if you're conducting financial transactions, minsan yung pagta-transfer mo ng pera nagkaka-problema. Do you advise na may hold muna transactions any time during the day?
Siguro po pag nakita natin na may mga ganitong activities na nangyayari, we would suggest na yung mga hindi naman ganun ka-importanting transactions, i-hold off muna nila. But of course, there are some really important transactions, let's say sa healthcare. Pag mga dumating po yung mga ganung pagkakataon, we would suggest that they could get in touch with the providers. Hindi na online, pwede po tumawag sa mga hotlines nila or dumiretso mismo sa tanggapan ng ahensya na kailangan nilang puntahan.
Well, I guess what we need to know also, what are the precautionary measures, diba? Should businesses, individuals, and of course government should do to maximize or minimize the disruption if ever?
Yes. So, katulad po nung natanggap nyo na balita na pinaghanda na namin ang mga iba-ibang agencies ng government to prepare for November 5. Pero ganun pa man, kahit na po wala naman yung November 5 na ina-expect natin na incident, tuloy-tuloy din naman po yung paghahanda ng government para iangat yung security posture ng lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno. Kasi marami na po tayong threats na nakikita, dumadami pa ang threats na nakikita natin sa internet, hindi lang itong DDoS attack na to, maraming mga online scams, mga illegal online gambling. So under po ng Oplan, Paskong Sigurado na nililid po ni Secretary Henry, ating kalihim sa DICT, kasama po ito sa maraming mga initiatives ng government to ensure that we are going to have a safe and secure Christmas against various online harms.
Alright, on that note, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, DICT Undersecretary Julius Gorospe.
Thank you very much po.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The Philippines and Canada formally signed a Status of Visiting Forces agreement over the weekend, aiming to strengthen their defense and security partnership. Here is the report.
The Philippines and Canada signed the Status of Visiting Forces agreement on Sunday. Defense Secretary Gibo Teodoro met with Canadian National Defense Minister David McGuinty in Makati City for bilateral discussions on expanding military collaboration and strategic partnership.
Canada and the Philippines are natural allies.
From economic development to cybersecurity to humanitarian assistance and disaster response, disaster risk reduction and resilience, Canada and the Philippines share a lot of common interests.
Canada also assured that it stands with the Philippines in protecting its territories, including those in the disputed West Philippine Sea.
To remember that Canada has been and remains resolute in support of Filipino sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Teodoro also addressed China's accusations that the Philippines is a troublemaker following joint military exercises with the US, Australia, and New Zealand.
Those exercises were held in open seas, in the high seas, where there is freedom of navigation and no one country controls that area.
The Philippines currently has visiting forces pacts with the US, Australia, Japan, and New Zealand, while dialogues are also underway with France.
Now let's discuss that further with security expert Chester Cabalsa joining us today. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Angela and Angelo.
Right. Perhaps can you explain with us first ano yung difference itong VFA versus SOVA natin sa Canada?
Okay. Of course, no, yung the VFA that goes with the United States, no, this is the longest treaty ally that we have with Washington. No, it's different because of course it's more extensive. It emanated from the Mutual Defense Treaty, but of course, no, yung special yung status of visiting forces agreement. This is, I think, is similar to what we have with Australia. No, I think mas specialized lang ito. Like say for example for Canada, no, they've been helping us so far with the dark vessel detection system. Yung mga vessels na pinapatay yung ilaw sa West Philippine Sea para hindi sila mapansin, no. I think that that has been other contribution to us, plus the cybersecurity, and at the same time the HADR na sinasabi ni Secretary Gubo. No, I think those are some of the specialized defense agreement that they want to forge with the Philippines. No, unlike with the VFA na meron tayo with the US and yung reciprocal access agreement that we have with Japan, certainly similar yung SOFVA with Australia and New Zealand, no, kasi magkakaibigan naman yan, and I think mas may niche cooperation lang dito, and I think that would differ this agreement with the visiting forces agreement that we have with the US.
All right, so I was wondering, what does this do with the what do you mean the shape or the role that would shape Canada in the Indo-Pacific region?
Okay, actually, this is the first time that Canada is forging a defense agreement with an Indo-Pacific country, which is the Philippines. No, so first time nila ito, and I think they wanted also to cement their strong presence in the region, given that, of course, no, the Indo-Pacific region, in which the Philippines is located at the heart of it, is a promising region. This is the present and the future, and of course, no, Canada, as a North American country, same with the US, they wanted to send a strong presence also in the region, and at the same time, we're talking about not only defense cooperation, but also the strong bilateral relationship of the Philippines and Canada. Remember that we have a strong Canada host a strong Filipino community in their country, and of course, no, they've been helping us a lot through education, economics, and this time around through defense economics. And I think it's high time that that we have this kind of cooperation. And this is one way for Canada also to expand their market and their defense economy in the Indo-Pacific region.
Does this latest development put pressure right now, so at least sa panig ng China, a little more pressure na to a point na maybe in the future we can go to the negotiating table knowing that we have Canada and the US behind us at may konting leverage naman tayo?
Definitely, because of course, no, Canada is still part of the G7, one of the strongest groupings in the world. But at the same time, there's pressure on both sides. From the point of view of China, of course, no, lumalaki rin yung kanyang alliances in the region, and of course, no, for the Philippines, this is something new for us. We haven't seen this in our history. It's only gaining momentum right now, where, of course, no, with the directive of President Marcos to be friends with everyone, and of course to diversify our defense commitments and cooperation to the world. I think this is the first time that the Philippines has this kind of defense cooperation now, inking defense agreements or visiting forces agreements with 5 countries. No, so hindi ito biro. But of course, no, there will be consequences, and consequences will be heightened tensions. But hopefully, we're not only talking about defense, sir, but this time around, Kaya pinapalakas yung depensa ng Pilipinas para kapag humarap din tayo sa China for diplomacy, no, when the time comes that we will sit down with them, I think big nations with powerful ammunitions will be supporting us also. No? So this is very important when it comes to confidence building mechanism and at the same time for deterrence capability. That's why it's very important. But I hope that we have to seize the moment. No, it's not only signing this agreement, but we hope that they will stand by us. No, by the time we call their support, they will be there. I think they've been helping us because we need each other. They need us also. Imagine Canada signing an agreement for the first time for an Indo-Pacific country like the Philippines. They need it because they knew that our region will be the promising region. No? So I think on the other hand, we also need them because of their technology and of course, no, for their we need them for interoperability of our defense equipment. And of course, now that we have self-reliant defense posture and we have been promoting the national defense industry, I hope that they would invest also in terms of the defense economy in the country.
But Chester, directly, what do we benefit from Canada? Are we looking at missile systems, radar system, side-by-side patrolling of the West Philippine Sea? Ano yung immediate impact na pwede natin maramdaman?
Very good. Ang niche kasi nila is yung ano, no, sila yung unang nag-offer ng direct vessel detection system, no. In other words, they're strong when it comes to cybersecurity. No, the mere fact that they are offering that to us, that means which other countries have not offered. So meron na, yun yung benefit na nakukuha natin sa kanila. But of course, no, since we are opening our defense economy to different kinds of industries, like I think ngayon ang pinag-uusapan natin are drones ecosystem. So I think Canada can help us with that. But of course, na si Canada kasi wala rin masyadong combat experience lately, no? Wala silang mga digmaan na napagdaanan in the past decades. So I think we can gain a lot from them when it comes to cybersecurity and not so much on the drone technology. I think other countries can offer us better than us. That more than that, I think yung now we are talking about submarine acquisition and other military hardware. I think dun sila pwedeng tumulong sa atin. But more than that, ang niche talaga nila is the rules-based in maritime international rules-based norms, and at the same time yung they recognize the arbitral award and the international law. I think yun yung pwede nating makuhang support sa kanila because they are still part of the G7. They are very vocal, an alternative from the US because they are part of North America. So I think those are some of the benefits that we could get from them.
But of course, we have to make sure na wala naman silang hindi naman sila magkakaroon ng bases here, ano, unlike the VFA before, because that's against the Constitution. But this has to be ratified by the President and concurred by the Senate. Is that correct?
Tama, Angela, no? So I think lahat na itong mga bagong visiting forces agreement, be it SOFBA or reciprocal access agreement, no, RAA, ang basis na nila ngayon, they will not be putting up bases because of course, no, it's against, contrary to our constitution. Nagbago na rin kasi, matipid na rin kasi yung mga ibang bansa ngayon. Ayaw na nila yung nagtatayo ng bases din kasi magastos on their part. That's the reason why they wanted reciprocal access, and usually the invitation comes from us, no? Kaya nga pagbalikatan exercises, we invite them, they come here, and of course, no, when we do joint sail and joint air, that's the time that they come, no? And depending on the provisions also of the SOFBA, no, I think yung kanilang SOFBA with us goes with cybersecurity and HID or also. So kasi of course, no, we experience a lot of natural disasters. I think that's one way of helping us. And of course, no, yung isusuga natin yung discussion kanina on the cybersecurity threat that we have, I think they could help us with that.
They can help us with
I think yun yung mga nag-evolve yung security dynamics, no? We're not talking about naval bases here or air bases here. We're talking about the movements, mobility of armed forces that Filipinos can also train in Canada and with the countries that we have defense agreements like US, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. But At the same time, they can come here in our country and do interoperability and wargaming with us.
Ayun. Well, taking this opportunity na rin to ask you, Chester, regarding this recent statement by the US through their Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, na magkakaroon daw ng US-China military communication channel. This is right after the ASEAN summit, stating on their end na dapat daw strengthen pa ng mga ASEAN neighbors yung kanilang whatever that is to counter China. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they're just changing the nomenclature. I think we have in the past the hotline operations, but of course hindi nag-push through yung hotline. I think this time around.
Chester? Medyo nawala siya.
Si Chester. Ganda yung sinasabi, sayang.
Chester, you still there? Wala pa namang Wednesday, may video.
Ayun. Yeah, hello.
Ayun, there you go. Yeah, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm
please?
here.
Thank you.
Okay, I think they're trying to change the nomenclature before we have the hotlines. But now, of course, they're trying to rechannel it and put another name on it. But of course, we welcome such move because, of course, we want our messages are well communicated. Kaya nga nagkakaroon ng problema because of the miscommunication.
Right.
Even in China, their problem is their strategic communication. They don't understand the Philippines and their neighbors because they lack also strategic communication. So I think by having this kind of mechanism, I think it builds confidence. And at the same time, ang gusto naman natin, especially that of course the Indo-Pacific, where the Philippines and China, including of course the parts of the US, because Hawaii is there. We wanted a prosperous Indo-Pacific, and I think war should be deterred. Although there will be misunderstandings, conflicts will rise because, of course, we are now at the center of the world. But at the same time, these kinds of mechanisms are really important for us to communicate what we want. There will be disagreements, then we discuss it. That's the very reason of having that kind of strategic communication.
Course,
so, mas matapang tayo kapag
ay, nawala na naman si Sir Chester. Sayang Well, thank you so much for your time, security expert Chester Cabalza. I was gonna ask him pa naman sana regarding the... Andyan pa ba si Chester?
Yeah.
Ayun. Well, yun nga, when you were saying, kasi the big question there is kung talaga makikipag-usap ang China sa US regarding West Philippine Sea, because ang kanilang narrative would always be bilateral, diba? Kung Pilipinas ang kausap nila, dapat Pilipinas lang. Now, my question here, very quick na lang, Chester, yung dun sa mga balita na President Bongbong Marcos sa APEC Summit ay in-approach itong si President Xi Jinping. Anong basa mo dun?
I think our president is very bold and courageous and very diplomatic. I think ganun dapat, I think ibig sabihin that gesture, handa na makipag-usap ang Pilipinas sa China. I think that's the strong message that we could get from that position, that based from what we have seen, imagine our president boldly stood up to President Xi Jinping, and of course, for sure they discuss something there that alone is very commendable. We salute the two leaders for having that kind of short momentum. I hope it opens a lot of doors for us. This is now the best time for us to sit down and talk with China and resolve peacefully the dispute in the...
All right.
Yan.
On that note, maraming salamat sa iyong oras, security expert Chester Cabalza.
Maraming salamat po.
President Bongbong Marcos meets South Korean firms that pledge billions of pesos in investments on the sidelines of the APEC Summit. Here's the report.
President Bongbong Marcos described his participation in the 32nd APEC Summit in Gyeongju, South Korea as very productive. The summit focused on the use of artificial intelligence and climate change mitigation amid economic challenges and regional tensions.
I'm going home, all of us are going back to Manila with a lot of ideas to think about and some work to do to develop those ideas.
On the sidelines of APEC, the president met with major South Korean firms, including tech giant Samsung, which plans to invest over 50 billion pesos to expand its manufacturing operations in Calamba, Laguna. The project is expected to generate more than 3,000 jobs.
Buti na lang, meron na tayong batas na Create More. Because within the new Create More Act, there is a threshold where we say that if there is an investment of over 50 billion pesos in the country, then they are qualified to be extended incentives and tax exemptions. So they committed to that.
Samsung will also implement technology transfer and workforce training programs in the Philippines, partnering with select universities for research and skills development. A supplemental agreement was also signed between the DTI, PEZA, and Samsung Electromechanics Philippines Corporation.
Yung mga trabaho na binibigay ng mga companies na to, medyo on the higher level. So that means maganda ang pasweldo. So napaka-importante sa ating Pangulo.
President Marcos likewise held talks with shipbuilding leader Hanwha Ocean for the modernization of the Philippine Navy, and energy firm DL Group, which aims to partner with Meralco for a small modular nuclear reactor project in the Philippines. The president also met with Chilean President Gabriel Boric to finalize the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement before the year ends. It will be the Philippines' first free trade agreement in Latin America. Before returning to Manila, President Marcos visited the UN Memorial Cemetery in Busan to honor Filipino soldiers who fought in the Korean War.
Alright, so every summit naman ganyan kapag ina-attenan ng isang presidente, pag uwi nila, they get pledges di ba? Investment pledges. So yung fruition yung investment pledges na yun yung dapat abangan natin.
Yeah, how many will commit to these pledges? Kasi mga iba dyan, they back out if they look at the political climate, credit climate, investment climate dito, di ba? And then they will back out. Mga iba natatakot sa mga red tape, ang haba ng proseso. That's why I think si PBBM
yung mga FDI natin, yung foreign direct investment.
May ease of doing business daw, mas lalo na if you're a foreign investor coming in, pinadadalian na nila yung proseso.
Well, also, kanina pinag-usapan natin with security expert Cecil Cabalza, tinanong ko sa kanya anong basa niya dun sa ginawa ni President Bongbong Marcos na paglapit niya kay President Xi Jinping. Diba? Sabi nga niya, it's very courageous of him. And I think I agree with that. No, pakita natin sa buong mundo na, diba, yung civility natin towards China. And I understand also that APEC Summit is not the proper forum to talk about West Philippine Sea.
Yeah.
Diba?
Kasi mostly dito, mga economic concerns lang ang pinag-uusapan. Political concerns are usually raised through ASEAN or diplomatic channels. Back and forth. And may mga protest naman tayo na napadala na.
But of course, speaking of ASEAN, by next year, 2026, ay tayo ang magiging chairman. Usually kasi yan, alphabetically arranged yung mga mamumuno, di ba, mag-host ng ASEAN Summit. But kaya if you will see, sabi nila ASEAN 47, 48 or 48, 49 ASEAN Summit, because hindi na magsiskip muna sila sa Myanmar because of what's happening. Kaya ang Pilipinas sa 2026 na tayo. So we'll be spending billions of pesos. I think 5 billion for preparation, and then 17.4 billion during the day itself of the hosting. Alright,
and now let's check the situation over at the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange following the observance of All Saints Day and All Souls Day. We have mobile journalist Francis Rivera. Francis, marami pa bang pasahero galing sa province?
Good morning, Angelo, Jericho. Ngayon nga, nakikita niyo sa aking likuran, halos kakaunti pa lamang ang bugso ng mga pasahero, no, galing dun sa mga galing sa kanilang probinsya, no, umuwi sa kanilang mga probinsya. At ayon nga dito sa administrasyon ng PITX, no, nakausap natin kanina, pumalo lamang ng mahigit or 1,777 to be exact ang naging bilang ng mga pasahero mula kahapon. Ano? At yung ibang araw kaninang madaling araw nagkaroon na ng bugso dahil nga yung iba may mga pasok pa dahil Lunes din ngayon. No? Pero Angelo, meron din tayong mga naitalang mga canceled flights, canceled trips, no? Dahil nga dito sa typhoon na inaabangan natin, binabantayan natin, no? Ilan na nga dyan yung canceled trip, yung Mindoro to Masbate, yung Batangas, Katiklan, Batangas, Rojas, Batangas, Romblon, at Batangas to Sibuyan.
Oo. Francis, dun sa sinasabi mong cancellation of trips, meron bang ibig sabihin na mga stranded na pasahero dyan ngayon? O naabisuhan naman sila ng mas maaga?
Yes, Angela. Sa pag-iikot-ikot nga natin kanina, wala pa naman tayong itatala ng mga stranded na pasahero mula dito. No? Ganun din, no? Pinuntahan natin yung mga ticketing booth, no? Kung saan nga may mga cancellation ng trip. Yun, base sa kanila, wala pa naman na lumalapit sa kanila at wala pa namang pasahero na nakastay ngayon dito at nag-iintay ng alternatibong biyahe para doon sa mga trip na yun.
Kasi minsan yung mga bumabiyahe papunta doon sa areas na nabanggit mo ay wala naman talagang tirahan dito sa Metro Manila. Alright, meron ka na bang datos, complete data doon sa kung ilan bang pasahero ang nagdatingan dyan no, simula nung undas na naitala sa PITX?
Angelo, wala pa sa atin binibigay sa ngayon, ano? Pero ang nakuha natin mula nga dito sa ating admin dito sa PITX ay yung kahapon na merong nagtala ng 1,777 na pasahero na nagdatingan dito sa PITX.
Yung security concern, yung security dyan, medyo gumaang na ba? Hindi na ganun kahigpit or maintain pa rin sila?
Diego, marami pa rin nakapalibot ng mga kapulisan at mga iba't ibang mga security personnel. At dito sa ating gilid ay ang assistance desk, no, kung saan maaari kayong lumapit ang mga pasahero kung nangangailangan ng assistance. So, at bawat palapag nitong PITX, yung iniikot natin, may mga naka-standby din na assistance desk, no, na mayroong mga kapulisan na nakabantay doon.
Alright, maraming salamat. That was our mobile journalist, Francis Rivera, reporting live from PITX. In other news, the National Police Commission, or NAPOLCOM, has ordered an investigation into a Bacolod police officer who surrendered and confessed to killing 42-year-old Christine Joy Dignadice. Dignadice's blood-stained car was found abandoned in Hiningaran, Negros Occidental on October 29. The officer, whose name was withheld, pointed investigators to the victim's remains as SOCO and a special team began recovery operations. The motive for the killing has yet to be determined. In a separate development, NAPOLCOM will issue a show-cause order to a Halloween partygoer who wore a police uniform, citing possible violations under Article 179 on the illegal use of uniforms.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Department of Agriculture has announced that the rice import suspension will be extended until December 31. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel said the suspension has had little effect on retail rice prices and supply but has significantly supported farm gate prices of palay. The measure was originally enacted under EO 93, which temporarily halted regular and well-milled rice imports for 2 months, ending October 31 to address falling palay prices. The executive order formalizing the extension is expected to be released today, November 3.
Let's talk about that matter with DA Deputy Spokesperson ASEC Joyce Panilio. Good morning, ASEC. Thanks for joining us again.
Good morning. Good morning, Angela and to all your listeners.
Okay, so ano po ba yung naging pag-aaral ng DA dito sa extension po ng rice import ban until the end of the year?
Yes, of course, we considered the effect of the import freeze. And we have seen that because of that suspension of palay importation or rice importation, the prices of the farm gate price of palay have increased from 8 pesos to 13 to 14 pesos per kilo. And because of that, we proposed this extension of the import freeze, and also in order for us also to make a further assessment or a wider assessment of the policy that we will adopt because of this suspension.
But of course, ang question po dito, Asik, is kaya po ba ng ating government yung supply po ng bigas para po sa ating bansa?
Yes, we have enough supply. Actually, we have a rice supply for around 90 days by year end. So that is our conservative estimate. But optimistically, our rice supply would last for 92 days, and there are still ongoing harvests in several provinces in the country.
Ano magiging impact nito, Asek, sa mga farmers natin? Especially, ongoing to the holidays, diba? We expect na dito dapat sila kikita pa ng husto. So, will this help them earn more?
Yes, because of the higher farm gate prices, definitely the income of our farmers will be higher. And with the import freeze, our retailers or our consumers would also be patronizing our local production of rice.
So far po ba wala naman po tayo na monitor within the local farming na naitatala na may mga nag-aabuso, nag-a-abuse because of this import ban within the farmers po?
May mga reports that there are areas in the country that would still buy palay at very low prices. But of course, we are continuously monitoring this one and seeking some measures on how to prevent this one. And continuously, we also provide support to our farmers to improve their productivity as well as to ensure that the farm gate prices of palay would be at the level that is reasonable for both the farmers and also our consumers.
Asek, anong support po ito moving forward? Kasi nagtatanong sila, aside from yung mga short-term na programa natin, ano po yung mga long-term na programs natin? Are we still pursuing the route of yung mga hybrid na palay na supposedly can withstand yung mga bagyo and also drought?
Yes. Patuloy po ang aming interventions. That is under our national rice program. So we are distributing this hybrid seeds and drought resistance seeds as well as climate resilient seeds. So aside from the national rice program, the budget also of the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund has been increased from 10 billion to 30 billion. That would translate to more interventions to our farmers in terms of capacity building, irrigation, as well as mechanization, such as the provision of drying facilities and rice processing systems all over the country.
All right,
we also have,
go ahead.
Yes, sorry.
Go ahead,
if I may add, recently also the government or through our president has issued Executive Order 100, or that's Executive 100 and Executive Order 10001. So that's a significant intervention or measure that the government has introduced to protect our local farmers as well as our fisher folk in terms of EO 101.
Alright, so does it include po ba yung proseso natin na how do we make sure na hindi po significantly tataas yung presyo ng local rice natin as soon as malift po yung rice import ban?
We are actively monitoring the prices of rice in the market. We have our Bantay Presyo team and we actively work with the Department of Trade and Industry. And that would be also through our Agribusiness and Marketing Assistance Service. We also have our Office of the USEC for Inspectorate and Enforcement. They would also monitor price movement as well as unfair practices in the market.
Pero may possibility po ba na ma-extend ulit itong import ban na ito until next year?
That would depend on what we will assess or evaluate during the suspension of rice imports. Then that would be another matter that needs to be discussed by our economic managers as well as by the Department of Agriculture. And of course, it is up to the President to adopt if we will adopt another extension.
All right. On that note, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. That was DA Deputy Spokesperson ASEC Joyce Pandillo.
Thank you so much and good morning.
Now, in other news, the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM-2, has raised alarm over the worsening state of literacy in the country. The number of functionally illiterate Filipinos nearly doubled to 24.8 million in 2024, based on the latest Functional Literacy Education and Mass Media Survey. During a hearing, EDCOM-2 said the Department of Education's involvement in 261 interagency bodies, up from 63 earlier, diverts focus from improving learning outcomes. Education Secretary Sonny Angara noted that DepEd chairs at least 20 of these bodies and co-leads 21 others with CHED and TESDA. He added that the department's growing mandates often come without sufficient funding. DepEd said it is limiting participation to high-impact councils and hiring administrative officers, so every public school will have one by 2026. EDCOM-2 stressed that easing teachers' non-teaching workload is key to addressing the country's literacy crisis.
Here are some of the latest stories in sports. Barangay Nebra snapped a 2-game losing streak with a dominant win over NLEX in the Philippine Cup. Japeth Aguilar powered the comeback, scoring 21 of his 25 points in the second half to pull away from the Road Warriors. In the UAAP, FEU escaped Adamson in overtime. The Tamaraos nearly wasted a 13-point lead before steady free throws from Kirby Moncopa sealed the game. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are One News.
Bukas yung quote mo, ha? All sides, all the time.
Suot ko.